Hello there. Welcome to another episode of the Luxembourg Mind, Business Beyond Borders. Today we are at the Salonkee offices and we will be talking to Tom Michels, their founder and CEO. Salonkee has had a meteoric rise ever since they opened up pre-pandemic. Today they have 6 offices, over 200 employees and a really nice office. Let's go talk to Tom and learn a little bit more about their journey, about how entrepreneurship in Luxembourg is going right now, things that we're doing well and the things where we can improve. See you on the other side. So we are now in the swanky founder's office. You can probably see the words in the door there. And we have with us Tom Michels. Tom, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So Salonkee is now one of Luxembourg's most successful startups ever. You're now in 6 countries. You have over 200 employees. You have 10,000 customers. You've raised 35 million over your journey. It seems from the outside like you guys have had such a great journey. I'm sure there were ups and downs through it. Can you walk us through your journey about how Salonkee came to happen, how your path has been, and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it all started, or the whole idea started with me and a friend of mine, one of my co-founders, Alex, in the summer in a bar where we were annoyed to have to call our hairdresser or barbershop for an appointment. So that was the frustration that got it all started. But we weren't really from the industry, so we had no idea. We just know we don't want to call anymore for an appointment. And so what we did is we just said, hey, let's talk to our barbershop, let's talk to some others. We just, as a funny story, we just called random salons. We said, it's a student project. We just want to meet them. We don't want to sell anything, just to get feedback. And so that's how we got our first appointments with salons that are willing to give us feedback. We had drawn out a bit our agenda on paper to say we want to have this in digital. What do you think about it? Pitch the idea a bit. Feedback was not super positive initially. They were all very skeptical, but we still knew for us we wanted to have such a solution. So then we started building on it, or started to build the first version, talked to a couple salons that were willing to give feedback. And then that's how over time we got to a first version that we could launch, where you could basically book your appointment online. And on the salon, he would have like a digital agenda where the appointments then come in that are being booked online. And that's how it got started.
Really cool. What bar was this, if I can ask?
I don't remember the name. It was in the city center, but it doesn't exist
in the city center.
anymore.
Okay, go to bars in city centers and you'll have bright ideas.
Exactly. And Alex was studying that time in France. I was studying in Germany. And so we met back in Luxembourg during the summer break, and that's how it got started. Yeah.
Fantastic. And now a few years later, Series B, so much success. That's fantastic. Where do you go from here, Tom? What's next?
Yeah, I mean, today, so we are close to 10,000 customers, but just in the 6 countries we are in, there are more than 300,000. So we are still very early. I mean, in Luxembourg, we have quite a high market share. We're also leading in Belgium and in Switzerland, but there's still so much more to do. If you look at 10,000 versus 300,000, our goal is to get to at least like 30% market share over time in each country. Okay. So that's like 10 times bigger than today. So there's still a lot to be done.
Okay, so that sounds like you have a pretty solid roadmap ahead of you.
Yes, true. I mean, it's always 2 things, is building up our sales team and growing that. So today, out of the 200 people, half of them are sales roughly. So roughly 100 sales and 100 people here in the office. So it's growing that team further to have even more geographical coverage, because it's a very outbound and sales-driven motion. So we are in the cities, going salon by salon, calling them door to door to really bring them into the digital age. And then on the other side is also expanding on the product. So we started only with online bookings, but then now today is much more than that.
So when you've had the kind of success that you have had, certainly there must have been some ups and downs. Could you talk to us about some of those challenges that you faced and how you navigated them?
Yeah, I mean, I think entrepreneurial journey is always ups and downs. It looks always only up from the outside, I guess, but it's always ups and downs. And some days you have the highest highs, and then some other days maybe lower lows. But maybe, one really challenging time I think was during COVID. So, COVID happened, and all our customers had to close their doors. And so basically our customers had no more revenue coming in. Yeah. And the whole question was, well, what is our purpose to book appointments if there can be no appointments? And so the whole question was, how can we manage that? How can we support our customers while they are closed.
Yeah.
And that was a challenging time, so we pivoted a bit and we said, hey, maybe you can send newsletters and other things and do not drop shipping, click and collect, like basically customers buy and come pick up the shampoo in the salon. So we tried to be as useful as possible even when they were closed. And then during that time also we had to go fundraise again because a new fundraising was coming up. So that was a really challenging time where you say, okay, you only have a couple months of money on the bank, you have to go fundraise while your customers are actually in lockdown. So that was quite a tough period, but at the end it all worked out. And then, salons opened again. And obviously all the ones that had Salonkee, they had a really good opening because the appointments were full at the moment.
Okay. Was that fundraising process challenging? Explaining to potential investors about how right now there's no business, but there will be business in the future. Was that a hard conversation?
It was certainly not making it easier, yes. So we showed that we could retain the customers. We even sold to new customers. We just said you start paying as soon as the lockdowns are lifted. And that kind of worked. So we really showed there's a need, but at the end it was definitely not making it easier.
Okay, the fact that you were able to onboard new customers, telling them that, hey, you can start paying once things start moving again. It shows that you actually had to adapt with the times, and you actually adapted quite successfully, enabling greater success once things opened up.
Yeah. I mean, also very basic on our sales, they normally call salons to get appointments. Well, if the salons are closed, how do you talk to customers, right? So then we have to get creative. You start writing Facebook messages to the salon owners because that's where they were. And so that's how we then got appointments, and we did then video calls. And we just had to adapt, and that's the way that we found that kind of work. And we kept even slightly growing then during the lockdown and say, hey, you start paying when we open up again, and that worked.
Okay, fantastic. Can I ask you a little bit about Luxembourg? Like, how is Luxembourg as a startup market? Like, if you were to talk to someone about why they should start up in Luxembourg, like, what are the reasons that you'd give them?
Yeah, I think Luxembourg is very special. I mean, it is positive and negative at the same time. So the negative part maybe first is that it's also the strength, but it's very small. So it means you have to go abroad very early. When you really get started, it helps to get the first customer here. The ways are short. You can talk to the people you need quite quickly. So that really helps. But then you very quickly come to a point where you're like, well, Luxembourg isn't big enough. I have to go abroad. And based from Luxembourg, it's easier to go abroad because, okay, we speak French or German, you have the languages here. We also have today Dutch support, Italian support. It's all here in Luxembourg because it's so international. And so then it later helps you on to move into new countries, the culture and the languages way better. But it's really a challenge initially because all your competitors, they grow in big countries, they just go to a new city. And you are like, well, I have to open up a new company, new team, everything is new very, very early on if you go abroad. And so I think it helps. Today, I'm very happy that we started from Luxembourg and we are way more international. But early on, it's really a challenge to go abroad so early.
I understand. But the languages thing, I think that sounds like a really strong advantage. You starting here basically means that it's easier for you to expand outwards once you've created your proof of concept than for others to come here and then adapt to the different languages spoken. So from that standpoint, I think that's a pretty strong benefit. I was talking to Patrick a couple of months ago, and he mentioned something really interesting as well. What he said, Patrick from tax.lu. So what he mentioned was that Luxembourg is a great incubation point where you can test out an idea, and if it works, then expand.
Yeah, I think because it's so small, it's a very good market to test your idea. And often it's also a bit less competitive in Luxembourg. Maybe when you have an idea and it doesn't exist here, it's good to start. And that's, I think, where then most of the startups, they find some success, but then the big challenge is how do I now go abroad? Go to all the other countries where there's tons of competition. And then that's where the real challenge starts after you conquer Luxembourg.
Okay, that's fair. In our, we did a panel discussion a few months ago, and there were some interesting points that came about in terms of what we could do to improve the infrastructure, the setup, the ease of doing business here for entrepreneurs and startups. Like, I was hoping to revisit that conversation and go over some of the things that we can do better here.
I mean, I think creating a company in Luxembourg is kind of fine. It's the administrative process, and it can for sure be a bit easier, but that's not what I think makes entrepreneur not start or fail. Because if you fail there, then I think you're not ready for the rest of the journey. But I think one of the things that would really help, for example, is the stock options or options for employees to get the right talent into Luxembourg and to make them profit from the success of the company on the long term. If you're a small company, you cannot pay the big salaries that if you go to Amazon, Microsoft, or the banks. So you have to offer something else to get the right talent to your company. And what a better way to say, well, your success or our success is your success. You get parts in the company in a tax efficient way, because it's kind of possible today, but it's so tax inefficient that it almost makes no sense to do it. And I think if we can get that one right, at the end, the companies is all about the people that we can attract. I think that would really help.
Sure. Do you know if there's been any progress towards making that a reality?
I know there's some discussions, but there's nothing concrete yet on the horizon, I think.
Okay, so we're not there yet. Okay. But hopefully we get there.
Yes.
Can I ask you about your own personal path going forward? How do you see that manifesting, especially given that you've walked this entrepreneurial route, you've found success, and Luxembourg has a lot of budding entrepreneurs. Do you see yourself maybe in a mentorship position, or maybe getting onto the boards of some startups and guiding them through the system in the future?
I mean, I'm always very open to help and give feedback, but then obviously there's a time constraint. Salonkee still takes more than 100% of my time in that sense in a day. But then if there's something I can easily obviously help, very, very open to do it. I think to do it really in a more structured way. I'm not sure it's the right time given my involvement in Salonkee, but generally very open to the idea maybe later down the road when I have a bit more time.
Okay, well, sounds good. We'll come back to you at some point saying, Tom, now's the time to cash in those checks. Cool. Can I also ask you, Luxembourg, we spoke about the startup market here. It seems to be evolving quite rapidly. Can I ask you to talk about some of the other entrepreneurs you see there, some of the other exciting businesses that you see there? Is there any that stands out to you?
I mean, there's a lot, and probably I'm going to forget some if I start mentioning some now. I think there's a lot interesting early stage rather than some that got already more to scale and late stage. I mean, to name a few, and again, there's many more, but you can have like Tada Web, you have Passport, Kidola. There's a couple interesting ones, I think, that are all international, that started here in Luxembourg and that keep growing. And I think there's many, many more to come.
Okay. When do you think Luxembourg is going to have its first unicorn?
Well, it's always hard to predict that future. Maybe Salonkee can be the first one, but that probably takes another 3 years. So let's see.
3 years, it might come faster than you think. Yeah. So I'm really rooting for you. I mean, you're representing Luxembourg at the global stage, and we're so proud of what you've done. So
thank you.
Having Salonkee get there, be Luxembourg's first unicorn would be amazing.
Would be nice, yeah. But at the end, I think it's more interesting. I mean, unicorn is you raise on a high valuation, often way higher than what your revenue really is. So I think the real success is more like the revenue, and then to say, okay, the cap is more to say, can you get to 100 million of ARR, of recurring revenue, is I think more of a milestone than just raising on a high valuation and then never growing into it, is also not really the goal at the end.
Out of curiosity, if Salonkee were to hit its unicorn status, where do you think that'll come from? Will it come from having expanded into many countries and having done well there, or having expanded a customer base more in the countries that you're already in?
I think it will be a mix between expanding our customers in the countries we are in already and expanding the revenue by customer. So something where our industry often gets overlooked to say, well, hairdresser, what can you sell him, right? But at the end, even today, people often don't underestimate what we do. So it's not just an online booking platform. We have a point of sale system. We do payments, card payments. When you pay with your card in the salon, we take it. It's marketing solutions with it. And there's way more that is just linked to it, right? We go into banking and other solutions in the future. So the question is, can we get more customers, and can we get more revenue out of each single customer? And for that, the 6 countries we're in is way, way big enough already to build more than one unicorn. Okay,
all right, great. Well, we're rooting for you. Tom, that brings us to our rapid fire segment, where I'm going to ask you like 5 light, easy questions where we talk about hypotheticals. I'm going to start off by talking about the world of apps. Apart from Salonkee, what's one app that you can't live without?
One I can't live without. Well, Slack, obviously, for work is a very common one that is open all the time. Then there's another one I keep looking a lot, is Zoho Analytics, where all our numbers flow in. It's more like a dashboard app, but where's everything from our sales, revenue, conversion rates. I keep also a lot of time looking at that.
So no doom scrolling on Instagram or TikTok? Or
No, it's. I mean, I don't have TikTok. I don't know if I'm already the old generation for that. But also Instagram, it's just, you get stuck on it too quickly and lose time. So it's not.
Okay. Well, I guess finding success through the entrepreneurial route takes some discipline, and I guess this is your way of showing that.
Yeah, or vice versa. If you have a lot to work, then you spend less time on
Yes,
those because
yes,
you don't
okay.
have time for it.
All right. Well, chicken and egg
Yeah,
scenario
yeah.
here, right? Great. Now, we hear about these entrepreneurs coming out, the guys who found success saying, oh, I read this book and it changed my life. And is there something like that for you? Can I ask you about a book that you read that inspired you? Or
There's one book, but it's really a long time I read it. It's from Dale Carnegie. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People.
yes.
And the title sounds maybe a bit weird, but it's really about human interactions.
Sure.
And I think it really helps us on leadership and management.
Okay.
It's a really good book. It's also like one of the, I think, highly rated in that domain.
Yes. One of the
So that
classic,
one was really good, yeah.
classic business books, the networking and all that. Okay, very good. We touched upon this earlier in the conversation. We spoke about how people think about the beauty industry and they kind of either write it off or don't take it too seriously. Can I ask you about something surprising that you learned in your time here in this industry?
I mean, from the industry itself, I think I really learned that our customers are more artists and really passionate about what they do than they really are focused on running a business from a number side. I mean, at the end, they run a business, yes, but actually that's our opportunity to make that part as easy as possible so that they can spend more time with their customers. And it's not just because it financially obviously makes sense, that it's also something that the customer is going to adopt because they focus on spending time with their customers and doing their craft. And so we are more like the hero in the back end. That's what we try to do. And I think just generally is more from a business perspective is that when we got started, we only thought about online bookings. But today we have a much broader view on what actually vertical SaaS typically today, what that actually means and how much more you can sell to a salon. If you have your foot in the door, they trust you. It's always easier to have everything in one system than to have 8 or 9 different suppliers for different services.
Okay. That's actually, you made a very interesting point there. So they talk about how if you do something you love, you'll never feel like you're working. Does that mean that the folks in this industry are typically happier than the ones that you see in the corporate life because they're doing something that they're truly passionate about?
I don't know if it's generally true. Probably not when they have to do their accounting, and that's why we come in then to make them even those parts easier.
Okay.
But I think generally, yes, they are all super passionate about what they do with the customers and being there every day. So I think that's what brings them joy, and we try to make the non so fun part more fun.
All right, Tom. This brings us to the most important question of the interview. I've seen you a few times. You're always like perfectly groomed. Your hair is on point, and you run Salonkee. So, where do you get your haircut? Where do you get your grooming? Give us the inside scoop. Who are the best in Luxembourg?
I mean, the salon I go to is Esprit Coiffure in Luxembourg. Is one of the salons I signed myself. I think they were about the top 10 or 15 first salons that we had. And that's why I got stuck at the end.
All right. Well, hopefully this might drive some more business, make it harder for you to get your appointment because more people are going there. All right. Which brings us to the final question, the advice segment. What advice would you give entrepreneurs who are trying to make it in Luxembourg, trying to follow along your path? What tips would you give them to make their journey a little easier?
I think it's always, one has to be careful about general advice because it's always very different. Every company is really different at the end. I think early on is really about just not quitting and trying things and learning, having a very open mindset. When we started, we had no idea about anything in the industry. We just had time, we were willing to code and just try things out. And that's how it all got started. So I think talking to the customers very early to make sure you develop something that there's an actual need for. I think early on that's really important, and you don't just say, I have an idea, I work on it for 2 weeks, and then you realize that nobody's really interested in your idea. So the earlier, and what we did with the pen and paper, go to the salons, the earlier you talk to them, I think the earlier you get the feedback that is really needed. And then over time, really every company evolves differently, and I think different things become priorities. But that's how really, if I would start again, is what I would focus on, like who could be potential customers and talk to those very early.
Got it. Start with the customer. Try to define very clearly the problem that you're trying to solve, and then from there,
yes, and then from there is just iteration. At the end, it's always the idea. Was to say the idea is the easy part. Everybody had ideas. Salonkee is not a revolutionary idea that nobody had before. I'm sure there were tons of people that were wondering why can I not book my hairdresser online. It's all about execution at the end, and that's not. You don't have to have the perfect plan. You just have to get started, and then you just do and adapt and learn and iterate all the time.
Like they say, ideas are dime a dozen, but it's about getting out there, getting your hands dirty and executing that.
Yes. It's
makes a
all about
difference.
execution.
Well, Tom, this has been a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insights.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.